Hi friends, welcome to this session on Django. Django is a high-level Python web framework that encourages rapid development and clean and pragmatic design. It was basically developed keeping in mind the hard timelines that developers were given. So it helps you go from conceptualization to completion of the project very fast. It has a lot of security which is inbuilt that helps the developers to avoid common security mistakes. Now let's see how to install Django. So first we will start with a virtual environment. Okay, so since my desktop already has virtual environment installed, I am not going to install, but if you want to install, it's pip install virtualenv. Now we will have to create a virtual environment. So what we will do, we will go to the directory where we want the virtual environment to create it, and then run the virtualenv command, which is going to create you the virtual environment with the name you have specified. In this case, I am going to give a name my django underscore venv. So while it gets created, let me tell you why we need virtual environment. It helps developers to have multiple versions of modules, maybe Python, maybe Django, or any other module that you are using for a given. In every environment, you could have a different version existing at the same time, so that you don't need to install a system specific module which can further cause problems when you go to production due to clashes of versions or clashes of different modules that has been installed. So it's always good to have a different environment. Okay, so here you see it is installing a setup tool, pip, wheel, everything. So everything which you install will be very much specific to that environment. So if I create another environment on the same system, so that will use a different set of tools. So I could have different pip version in virtual environment 1 and a different version in environment 2. So now the setup is done. Now we are going to create a let's see what is there basically within this. So I'll just go inside the directory where it is created, that is, that's it is. So it has a include, a library, scripts, TCL, and the environment configs. So here you see all the libraries that is needed in that environment is put in. So anything you install will be in the site packages of the environments lib, not the actual lib of the system, Python lib of the system. So now let's go and install my softwares within the environment, or the modules which I need within the environment. So before that we are going to activate the environment. So what happens when we activate? When we activate, it puts the paths of the specific environment before any other path, so that when whatever you do, it will take place first in your own environment, or when you search for something, it will pick it up from your environment. Now let's install Django now. So it's going to take some time. Install Django and its dependencies. So while it gets installed, okay, there are two things that we are going to do in Django. The first one is create a project, and the next we are going to create a application within the project. So a project is a bigger entity within which you could have multiple applications, and you are going to manage the project, sorry, not the then from the project you can manage your individual applications. Now that Django is installed, we are going to go ahead and create a project. So there is a command which is built in Django which is called Django admin. So I am going to call the Django admin command and create a project. So first we will create a project. Within the project we are going to create an application. So the command is pretty simple. Django admin start project and the project name. So it is going to create a project setup directory, and within that directory we can go and create app, Django admin start app, and the app name you want to do. So let's do it now. I'm going to call it my Django project. So the project is created. Now let's see what it has done when it created the project. So it has copied some files. Manage.py. This is the main file. So anything we are going to do, we are going to use this file. So it's a simple file. Okay, it's going to for any command you run further will actually be read and executed from the command line. As an argument it will read it, and then it's going to set the settings wherever the entire settings for the project is stored. It's a settings.py file which is present in my Django underscore project folder. So we'll go within that. We will see what is there in the settings file. So here is the settings file. There are a lot of things here. Okay, we will go through the key ones. One is the installed apps. So all the apps you are going to install will be listed there. The middleware, the root URL config. We will see what this is later. Okay, when we are configuring the application. So yeah, so basically whenever you create an application, so you are going to give the URLs that is going to come and use the URL file to send it to the right place to be processed. Then we have the templates where we will have that. What is the template? Template is nothing but all your HTML files with your code within, the Python code within. So that's the templates. Then your WSGI application again. So that's the path for it, and the database. So any database you are going to use in Django as well as the application within Django will be specified here. And there are some other settings as well below. Okay, so some of them will not be there. We are going to add it. Like if you are using a login application, the login URL, logout redirect URL, and there's a static part. The static is a directory where you are going to store all the CSS, JavaScripts, images, whatever you want for your application. They are stored in this. So this is the basic settings file which has all the information required to run this project. Now we are going to create an app and see what happens. What are the directories it creates for the app? I'm going to say start app. So yeah, now the app is created. Let's see what is there in that. So we'll go to that folder. So you have all these. There's an admin, there are apps, there are models, there are tests, views. Okay, models are the ones which are used to interact with the database. So basically the database schema you are going to give it in the models, and apps will be the name of the app. This is a simple file, okay, which will have a class, your app name config, and then the name of the app. So this is what you are going to give it in your settings.py file. So in your settings.py you are going to give my django web app dot apps dot my django web app config. So that will load the app. If you want, you can also give the path where the app directory is located. Here we are not going to specify any path, but just for your, so we are going to give like my django env slash my django project slash my django web app. So this is how I can give it here. So but it's not mandatory, so we will not give it. Okay, we'll keep it simple now, not to complicate too many things. So what we will do, it will come in this section. So here we are going to give my app folder dot apps dot your class that is defined there, which we just now copied. Okay, I already have the path. I'll just copy it and put it. It's case sensitive, so I'm going to change. We need to have it as capital M, otherwise it's not going to work. So there is something called templates. So here you can give the location of the templates for each app. You see it's a list. So I can give multiple locations. So I can give my web app, then comma, the path for my web app 1, comma, my web app 2, so on and so forth. So it is going to scan through all the templates path. So I'm just going to show you an example how it can be given. Since there is one settings file for the entire project where you can have multiple apps, they have provided all the possible, the config in such a way that you can define the paths or the applications which are there, so that when you start running that application, it picks up. The next is the database. Okay, so there is a default database. So we can have default, or we can have our own databases as well and use them. So I can say db for app1, db for app2. So here we are going to use Postgres. Okay, I don't want to use the internal database it's given, because that becomes too easy. So we will see how to configure also. So that's why. So first I'm installing the driver, then I'm going to specify the driver here, import it, and then give all the parameters that's required for Postgres. So this is all what is required for Postgres. There's an engine which is Postgres, then there is a database, and Postgres has the concept of schema. So you're going to give which schema. Within that schema, all your tables will be located: a username, password, the host, the port, and the search path. Search path is required because when it searches for the tables, you will require which schema it needs to search. So I've given that. So Postgres works on the schema concept. So it's like database, schema, and then the tables. So you need to specify the schema, search path. Since later on we are going to use login application, we are going to develop a login application. I will already give the login URL. Just remember the names: login underscore URL in caps is equal to login. Logout redirect URL is basically once you log out, it will go back to the login page. So that's what we are specifying here. If you want some other page, you can put that. other page, and the static we will not touch, it is as it is. Okay, now let's create the database and the schema in our Postgres. I'll go to the path where Postgres is installed, log in into the SQL, Postgres SQL prompt, and then create the database. So in a practical scenario, you would always have some external database, could be Oracle, Sybase, Postgres, MySQL, that you will connect to. So that's specifically why I am trying to give an example where you are connecting to a outside database rather than the SQLite which comes along with the package. Okay, so now I have logged in. Now I'm going to create a database. The same name we have to give what we have given in the config file. Score DB. Yes, then I will connect to the database. This is going to take some time creating the database. Yeah, connect to my database. Yes, and then now we will go ahead and create the schema within the database. So the schema is created. Now the database is ready. Okay, for us to migrate the Django tables into that. So how do we do it? We are going to do a migrate command. So there is a manage.py file. So we are going to use that. So what I am going to do is basically run python manage. Okay, python manage.py migrate. So here there is a problem with the username. It's single s. I have given double s in the settings. Okay, now let's rerun. So now it will start it. So it's going to create everything in the database, all the tables that Django requires for user management as well as its own internal usage. So we can see here. Let's first see the schema. \dn will show the schema. Yeah, so that is our schema. Now we will see all the tables. Select start from pg_tables. So here you will see in my schema it has created some of the tables: auth group, auth users, sessions, permissions, all those things. So now we are ready to launch our app server. So it comes with a built-in simple development server. We are going to launch that. Same, it would be a similar command. Python manage then run server. No, before that, let's create a super user. Yeah, there's a spelling mistake, so I've written SUER instead of USER. Okay, let me copy paste from the help. So this super user will be the one where you can actually log in into the Django console and create more users, group, etc. All that can be done. So assigning them permissions, all those things can be done. So our application can use Django's user management itself, or we can write our own separate code for user management. Both is possible. So now I am going to create a super user here, and when we develop an app, we are going to use the inbuilt user management functionality of Django. Run server, it will start the server. So by default it takes a 8000 port. Okay, we could change the port also by giving the port minus port, whatever is your port when you start up, it's going to give. You can check the help for that and see. Now let's see what does it say. So it says yes, so it's up and running. So he says you can start your app by this, but that's already we have done. So let's see how the admin page looks like now. Okay, we'll do that later. When I show the application with the login, I'm going to create the user and show you that. For now we'll go ahead. Now we are going to create a simple app. Okay, and I'll also explain you how the flow happens in Django when a request comes. So I'm creating a templates directory. So templates will store all my HTMLs. Okay, it could be simple HTML or the HTML with some Django code. We are going to see both. So we will first see the simple HTML. We will just add one line in that saying success or something. So whenever you try to log in, or rather whenever you access this simple page, it's going to give it you success. Now the HTML is created. Now how will Django forward it to this HTML? So the requests actually, whenever the request hits it, okay, in settings we would have mentioned which URL file to use, that is the rootconf URL. So there we would have mentioned that you have to go to my whatever Django project dot setting. So it's dot URLs. So it will go to URL. So URLs is nothing but a Python file there as well. It's url.py. So we will see what is there in url.py. Okay, so here you will just have probably the one for admin now. So here you will give a regular expression. So you will say URL pattern matches this. You are going to forward this to this particular view. We want to see what is a view. View is basically a program or a function which is there in Python, from where you are going to do the actual processing of the request. So I'll say a simple. So I'm requesting simple.html. So I'll say whatever comes with the name simple, I'm going to forward it to view.simple. So that's a simple, that doesn't that's a view which is not existing. We are going to create it. So before that we are going to import it. So we want to import the view. Okay, we are going to, there is a file within your folder, app folder, called views. So there we are going to create the view. So this is where your view is. So let's create a view here. So again, as I told you earlier, we are always going to use a config file. If you remember in my earlier basics tutorials, I told you about the config file. So we are going to create some config file and then use it. Okay, so now anyways, so this is how your URL looks like, and then this is how your view looks like. So we are going to modify them so that, yeah. So app base is something that I am pulling out from my config file. I am going to add the template and the simple thing part to it. Okay, and then it is going to return. So basically, yeah, there's a mistake there. We'll correct it. First, let's go through the util. So what I am doing, I am calling a util in which there is a read config, where I am parsing a config from a given path and passing it. Let's see what's there in the config file. So this is how your config file will look. So I have given web app static base and I have given a path. So that path will be picked, passed on, and then it will be appended to your so render, and you are going to, it's going to send back the HTML file. So here you go. So your now first applications which returns a simple page is been set up. This is the end of part 1. In part 2 we will see how to set up application using Django's authentication model and work with the database tables, how to get data and put data.